Hi everyone, this is Bill from AT Makers. I thought I would walk you through a project that I kind of picked up out of the blue here right before Christmas time. I got a request from the SMA Adaptability Facebook group to switch adapt anything with a clown really, but the direct request was for a Jack-in-the-Box. Now some of us find them creepy, but listen, if a kid wants a Jack-in-the-Box and he's a Switch user, I'll be happy to work for him. So I went ahead and bought one on Amazon. This is a pretty standard Jack-in-the-Box. It's one of the best rated ones. It's about 20 bucks. It's metal. It's got the standard handle here that you crank. It's called a Schilling Jack-in-the-Box. And I decided with this one that rather than take it apart, because it's really sealed, right? It's welded shut. It's crimped shut on the top. It's welded on the bottom, and it doesn't look like something that I will ever get back together if I crack it open. I would try to not open it. That kind of left me with two options. One option would be to cut right here, to cut this crank and try to either solder on or clamp on some kind of a motor onto that. And I think that's the kind of the standard thing to do on these. Or to do what I did, which this is something that I can just leverage my 3D printer, and I made a crank for it. So I want to walk you through how I did it. It might lead me to a video on Fusion 360 and how to actually design something like this for your 3D printer. I think that's a worthwhile video. Maybe I'll make over Christmas break. But this is more along the lines of showing you where I am on this project. It is not done. There are some things about it that I really don't like, but I'm going to talk to the folks who asked for them and see how many of these things need to be fixed before I ship them off. Because if it's going to be just a Christmas toy, it's probably pretty close to being done. If they're going to use it for years and years and it's a favorite toy, that's a separate story. So let me show you kind of what I went through here. I'll turn off my own video here for a second. All right, so this is a standard box. You'll see that it's got the crank right here. What I did was I printed the actual mount for the motor. This is a small DC motor, and a paddle that I printed that will turn the knob. Okay. So as this motor turns, it turns the knob. It is powered by 3 AAA batteries. They probably should be AA batteries, but that's what I had room for. And of course there's a jack, so you can plug in your AT switch right here and it will power it. I'll show it using it. I have a video that I recorded before without the background, kind of showing it popping up just for fun. I will show that. But let me kind of show you how this thing works. So basically, let me pop this guy out. You'll see that it's a snug fit, but it also has, I used some little pieces of ticky tack to hold it in place. Let me pop this out. There you go. You got to make sure I lift the crank up at the same time. There you go. All right, so this is what I actually printed, and you'll see that it is exactly sized so that the Jack-in-the-Box will slide in like that. Down in the corners, it has 4 little pieces of ticky tack, poster tack, whatever you want to call that in your neck of the woods. But it's basically stuff, it stays soft, it's just like a gummy. And the only reason I had that, it works fine without it, but with when it pops, it tends to jiggle, and it's just easier if it doesn't move so much. So the idea here is that when you slide in this, you'll actually slide the crank in here as well. And then all this is a DC motor. So the wiring goes in, out the jack, goes down to the switch, back to the DC motor, and it turns the knob. Now there's no complicated electronics in this. I would have liked to have been able to control the speed of this motor, and I really, that's a stretch goal for this. I thought it was going to be simpler. I added a potentiometer. It's not, because it wastes a ton of, it has no torque at low speed, and it won't turn the knob. It turns out this is like a common problem that I've just never had to face. And there are solutions for it that I'm not going to get done by Christmas. So it's a pretty good speed when you use 4.5 volts, which is what this is, or 5 volts if you want to plug it into a wall. Let me show you how it works, and then I'll talk you through some of the problems that I see. So we'll go ahead and slide this in here. You'll notice I've got the handle going into the slot. We'll push that down, and now it's kind of attached. I'll kind of give you the close-up tour here, get this a little brighter. You'll see we did a couple things here. I actually made this curve just because otherwise you wouldn't see the pictures on each side. So I just cut a curve out of this to give you a view of each side. The bottom has a cutout so that you don't waste a ton of plastic, but it still holds its shape pretty well. It's printed in PLA. It could have printed in ABS just as well. I wouldn't mind if it was a little more sturdy. So if I do another print of this, I'll probably add a little bit of a curve on this inside corner right there. I worry about it a little bit. It's fine, it's not going anywhere, but it does wobble while it's turning. So let me go ahead and plug in a switch and show you how this works. This is a switch that I molded out of Instamorph that fits my hand. If you've never seen that, I'll be happy to make a video on how to make these, but they're great. It's just a cheap switch that exactly fits in my hand. It was great. I made it for made an example. I need to actually do it for him to fit a friend of ours who has cerebral palsy, and his hand does not open completely. So this is a good idea for that. But this is not the point of this. This is just any switch would work just fine. But you'll see that when the switch is closed, the contact closed, which lets the current run to the motor turns the handle, and let's see where the best. I guess that's a decent view right there. Still terrifying. So the clown is absolutely terrifying. So let's get a good shot of him, just so you guys can see. He's a cute clown. He's embroidered. He's, nice, soft, plushy clown, if you like clowns. So that's how this works. It is a fairly simple solution, right? It's just a motor that turns the handle. I didn't have to crack this open. Nice thing about that is if you want to model it with the kid, that would be helpful. It also it might be useful if the battery dies or if it breaks, you don't have a broken toy. So that's all good. Let's talk about a couple of the very obvious problems with this. Probably the biggest obvious problem is the noise. So I used a motor. Let me see if I can get a better view of this. So I used a motor here that looks like a servo motor, but it's not. It is actually a DC motor in a servo housing. And so it's a small motor with lots of gearing in it. And it's meant for actuating things on motors, being drivetrains for very small motors, for the wheels and stuff. And unfortunately, it is really noisy. It's not quite as loud as it sounds on the video, but it is very loud. It is about equally loud to the music. So, I'll tell you what, you can hear it. Okay, so that's the biggest problem. The other problems are smaller and they're certainly solvable. But dealing with that one first. I think the only way to solve this is actually to replace the motor. So I'll do a quick search on small, quiet DC motors on DigiKey, maybe Adafruit. Take a look, maybe ask in their forums for suggestions for quieter motors. But that's probably the biggest problem with it right now. It's something I had in stock. It's something I had in my workshop that I could use. The other problem with this is that this actually wobbles a little like this. So you see that? And I think that's as simple as the screw that I'm using to hold it in place is too long, and so it's not able to tighten all the way down a washer is probably enough to solve that. So I will try to solve that with a washer. That would be fairly simple. I was focusing on the noise. And then the last has to do with powering it. You'll see the batteries are out here, which I don't like. I was originally going to make this area a battery container. And I asked online with the parents of the person who wants this and said, does he want this if the batteries are plugged in? And they said it doesn't matter, whatever's easier. Well, not having a battery built into it is certainly easier from my standpoint. So what the goal was to take a battery pack like this and make a standard DC jack on it that it could plug in, or you could plug it into the wall. And the only problem with that, it's fine. I can actually put a little jack on it right here and send it if I wanted to. But I was kind of a dummy. The spot that I chose for the power jack is directly opposite the jack for the switch, and so there's actually not enough room for both. And I could put it farther up. I could drill another hole, but the wiring would have a hard time getting through there. If you look at the bottom of this, you'll see there's actually a hole for the wiring in the actual design, and it's kind of tight. So I will, if I send this one, I will probably tighten the paddle using a washer, and then put a jack right here so that they can move the batteries away from it if they want to. Otherwise, I think it's an okay prototype. It probably solves what they're trying to solve, which is just to get their kid a jack-in-box they can play with. And maybe this is a phase that's going to last a month or two, in which case this is a no-brainer, great Christmas present. If this is going to be his favorite toy or her favorite toy, I probably would want to fix some of the remaining issues. But I do like how this turned out as far as the enclosure for the case, and I think that it's a good start, right? It's a long print, but it's not a completely ridiculously difficult print. As far as 3D printing goes, the only real challenge with the print, other than the amount of time it took to make, was actually keeping this center hollow. Meant that there was a long support structure inside holding the top up. And pulling that out through the bottom was a challenge, but it was a 5-minute challenge, and it worked, and nothing broke. So I was happy. I was a little worried about it for a little bit. But I think this is an okay approach. It's probably not the first time this has been done, but I think it is neat that you can just print it in one go in the 3D printer and have all of your parts right there. So I will I'll run this one more time for you, and then I'm going to ask on the SMA board if anybody can give me some feedback on things they'd like me to change, things like that. So let's go ahead and run this one more time just to scare the daylights out of you. All right. It's still absolutely terrifying. All right, so goodbye, everybody. Thank you. Goodbye. And thanks for your time. Bye.